one of the points that he made that I think was insightful was, and I guess it's kind of obvious once you point it out, but it's a good point, that the private market does not have an incentive to meet the needs of the poor, because obviously the poor don't have the buying power to give people the incentive, give firms the incentive to want to serve the poor. But I think he left out another side of the equation, which is even if the private market is producing mainly for the rich, as demand for the rich's goods expands, they need to hire all those unskilled workers who are poor. Well, that's how they pull along the poor. And in fact, Africans have benefited from the demand of the rich in the rest of the world. Just to give you a random example, Kenya is currently supplying 40% of the European market for cut flowers. All those romantic European men who go out and buy flowers for their wives, they're mostly buying Kenyan flowers. Unfortunately, there aren't that many romantic European men, but Kenya is exploiting what they can there. So that's an example where the demand side of the market is working for Africa, even if the Africans are not creating tremendous incentives for firms to satisfy their needs.
So is it just a question of waiting? I mean, it took us 200 years, 230 years to get from 75% down to 10%. And if it'll take, if we're patient for another, 10 years, 20 years? How long to get the 10% down to whatever you wish, 2% or something?
Okay, well, I will agree with you that it would be great to do everything we could to meet some of the most desperate needs of poor people, like basic medicines. The babies who are dying from dehydration due to diarrhea because they can't get 10-cent oral rehydration salts that would rehydrate them and prevent them from dying. That's definitely something that I think rich people could try to do and make happen for poor people in Africa. I'm sympathetic to that. I guess the next question I have, though, is Bill Gates has this idea that it's the corporations of the world that should play an important role in that. Where do they fit in?
Before we get to what we should do, you make it sound like it's not necessary to do anything because capitalism is, it's not moving instantaneously, but it's moving fast enough. And my question to you is that your view, that you really don't need to do much of anything except, tear down tariff walls and other things within the theory of capitalism that might help some of these poor countries? Or do you think that we need to do more? And then we can talk about what that more might be.
Well, I wish that there was some convincing historical evidence out there that there was something that aid or rich people could do that would have a really rapid effect on lifting Africans out of poverty. I don't really see any historical evidence for something that does that, besides capitalism. What I was trying to say is that, as far as Africans exiting poverty and becoming rich, I don't think that's something that rich outsiders can achieve. But as far as the desperate needs that people have today, I think rich outsiders who mean well can supply some of those basic goods like oral rehydration salts for babies or other things.
But are you saying that there's no point in this creative capitalist stuff because nothing will move that 10% any lower? Or are you saying that just be a little more patient and it'll be lower by itself?
Well, by itself means a lot. By itself means the creative energies of hundreds of millions of African entrepreneurs and workers who lift themselves out of poverty. So that's how poverty ends, I think. That's where, if you look at historical experiences of how does poverty actually end, it always seems to end by the homegrown efforts of the workers and entrepreneurs themselves.
So are you saying that this will happen, don't worry about it? Or are you saying
it'll never happen?
I worry
about it. I wish,
it'll never happen, don't worry about it.
I think you're setting up like as if there's some alternative that I'm against, but there's not.
No,
there is no alternative that we know of. If I knew of an alternative that would get Africans out of poverty more quickly, I'd be very enthusiastic about it. But I don't.
Yeah,
I don't see any evidence for such an alternative.
Back when I did this for a living, I used to have a rule that I'd ask a question 3 times, and if I didn't get an answer the 3rd time, I'll give up.
So what question am I not answering?
This is the 3rd time. Is the continuation of poverty, extreme poverty in Africa, to take the most obvious concrete example, inevitable, or is it inevitably going to disappear? I mean, either one of those could lead you to the conclusion that creative capitalism won't work. But I'm just trying to figure out which direction you're coming from.
Well, nothing is inevitable in history or economics, but I think it's very likely that Africans are going to hop onto the same train. In fact, they may already be on the same train because the last 10 years have been very good economic growth in Africa that has pulled the rest of the world out of poverty.